I'm gonna make it, I'm making it so special today.
Wow.
For the third time today.
I can't believe that. Okay. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next time.
Trifecta.
I want to make it feel better.
I brought the cookies. Is that what you're saying?
Okay.
The trifecta, yeah, right.
Call the roll, please.
Mayor.
Here.
Plainfield.
Here.
Brooks.
Here.
Crizalone. Gould.
Here.
Hart. McGalla.
Here.
Parker.
Here.
Staley Perry.
Here.
Tuminello.
Here.
Weigel.
Here.
Winfrey. Here. And Eustace.
Here. Okay, next we have the approval of the executive committee minutes from November 9th.
Moves.
Moved. Second. Any additions or corrections? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Under old business, amending ordinance, expanding the boundaries of the Disclosure River Valley Enterprise Zone. Moved. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
He's a no. Show me the no.
Mr. Gould, no. Second, amending the Displays River Valley Enterprise Zone, IGA, for the Rock Run Crossing expansion.
Second.
Moved. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Yeah, okay, that's, motion carries. Next, we have amending the Displays River Valley Enterprise Zone, IGA, for the Eco Lab expansion request.
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I'm a yes on 3.
Okay. Okay, is there any other old business to bring forward today? On number 1, seeking number of sheriff's sworn personnel correction officers. I will make a request that we remove this from the agenda and I'll bring it back maybe after the first quarter. Let's see how the budget is going. And I talked to Mike and Melissa, and we'll wait till after the presentation.
You need a motion?
Yeah. Motion.
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. So we'll deal with that after the presentation. Next we have declaring the vehicles as surplus and authorizing disposal. Moved. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. 3, declaring the sheriff's seized vehicle surplus and authorizing disposal via the state contract through Clinton Auto. Moved. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Authorize an agreement between the City of Joliet, Housing Authority of Joliet, and the County of U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, assessment of fair housing. Moved. Second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Adopting the 4th update to the Will County Solid Waste Management Plan. Moved.
Second.
Got a second? Second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Number 6, Meari, are we ready on this one yet? Or are we still?
She's on the piano.
Oh, there you are. Okay.
No, we're waiting for One Oak. We had concern, they had deleted one paragraph out of our proposed, our draft agreement, which basically required them to coordinate with our contractor in removing the pipeline and the timelines for building the road. They had to send it to Oklahoma for approval. We have not heard where they're at, but I would caution that delaying this, the agreement required payment between January 1st, after January 1st, but before February 1st. Delaying this until a January approval may delay that payment, and we would have to learn that.
Well, so what did you want us to do here? I mean, we can move it forward based on and move it at the county board meeting based on your recommendation.
That would be fine, but just be aware it might have to be removed from the agenda next week if we don't have something from them. I just
Well,
don't know.
Well, I guess it won't matter. We can remove it. What's your preference?
Just go ahead and save the space, and then if you're not, if it comes late and you're not comfortable,
You can
always
on your
remove it.
recommendation. Okay, so next we'll We need a motion to place this on the county board agenda. I'm going to say that rather than say approve the agreement. We'll be approving the agreement after the county board. We have a motion, second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Next, we have approval of the IGA with the city of Joliet for Vetter Road condemnation to facilitate Center Point I-80 Bridge. This has the Hobalt Bridge, so. Move, second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Discussion of payment of the Shannon Manuka road bike path invoice. You know, this is something that the county agreed to pay for sometime back. We were never billed for it. But we do have the obligation, but we haven't designated where it's going to be paid out of. So I don't know, do we want to send this back to finance to make a determination where the money is going to come from?
Can I come from MFT?
I have no
It's
idea.
McCaverly Road's a county road. I know Rodney committed 100 and we committed 100.
I have no idea. Jeff?
Yes, sir.
This be taken from our fuel taxes?
Well, I would not recommend that because that takes several months to get processed, and also this is not a typical appurtenance that DOT would ever pay for. So I wouldn't want to use MFT for that. If anything, I would say with the RTA. Or if you want the corporate fund, that'd be fine too.
Yeah.
I know the
So what do you want, what do you want to
project's
do?
already started. I think RTA too, yeah.
Okay, well, okay, then the project is completed.
Yes,
Your satisfaction, Jeff? Did you go out and look at it?
my permanent engineer has, yes.
Did you ride a bike on it?
I'm waiting for Don to do that.
See you in March.
Okay, so I want to make a motion and move this forward and
I'll make it.
Fund it from the RTA.
Second.
Move second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we'll move this along then. And, you know what, Mary, on this, all we're doing, we already have the agreement, right? It's already been executed, correct?
Correct. That was.
So do we even need to go to the county board for, now that we're making a determination where it's going to be funded from?
Yeah, I don't think that there was any indication in the agreement as to where the funding was to come from.
Okay.
So I think that you have to
So,
identify.
so would we get, so here's what I'm going to ask.
And I'm not
Can we
sure,
just
yeah.
should we just bring the whole agreement to the county board and amend it, identifying?
I don't know that you want to, let me look at the agreement. It may just be better to move the invoice forward to be paid pursuant to that agreement. If you
Okay.
amend the agreement, you're going to have to have the other party also approve the
Okay.
amendment.
Yeah, that's true.
So I think just bring the invoice forward and the agreement as an exhibit.
Okay. So Mary, you and Reagan will take care of that.
Yes, so they just need a resolution.
Okay. So there will be a resolution. Okay. Okay, next we have pre-posting of replacement hires for the Division of Transportation. I'll take a motion.
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. New hires for the LCC 9/11. Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Proclamations.
We had a couple. Yeah, we had the one that we were just reiterating the school choice award. They asked us for another proclamation, so we were just going to recognize that and we haven't do that. Because we did this last year, but yeah, it was just the organizer of the school choice has asked us for a resolution, so nobody's coming up for a presentation.
This is for a resolution, he hasn't asked us for a proclamation.
For proclamation.
Proclamation?
Yeah, sorry.
Asking for what?
Just to recognize the week, January 21st through the 27th of 2018, the school choice.
School choice.
Yes. And then
What
you,
about that's mentioned, the others are from, meeting the whole.
right, and that's the second one that gold award for solar energy
Yeah.
that Jim had asked us to do. So,
It'll be nice.
Do you want that?
the podium.
Podium?
Yeah,
Yeah, I think
it
we
sounded
sounded like
like,
the dean itself.
that, because Jim wanted to give, right, we don't want to do this a board of the whole, so we'll just give him a few minutes to
Yeah.
talk a little bit about what he,
We're recognizing.
We'll do a recognition.
We were given where it came from,
I
yeah.
mean, Tom being chair for land use, we ought to have him call Dean down or something like that. Herb, that work? Good.
Tom, that'll work with you.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll entertain a motion to do the proclamation as presented.
No.
Second, all in favor? Okay, next we have appointments by the county executive. You know, I am concerned about one appointment, and that's the one to Metro. And even though the county executive has put a name forward, I still think we have an obligation to seek out perhaps more folks that have an interest in Metro. I did ask the county executive's office, and Nick did provide it for me. Thank you, Nick. And it's really tough. You try to get it out there. These are important positions, and we certainly have a lot of people I think that can serve us well. But you really have to sometimes get out there and make people aware of what it's about. Quite honestly, it's a very important appointment. I think we should continue to I'm going to mention two things here. Continue to look for folks who maybe would add their name before we make any appointment. So it is that we take no action to remove that appointment at this time from the agenda. And the other thing that I would like to get clarification on is we do have a board member who's expressed an interest right now. And, something about elected officials serving on Metro. RTA has a set of rules that elected officials don't serve on RTA. But Metro has all kinds of elected officials that serve on Metro over the years. And I think the executive's office was concerned, I say concerned, that you'd be disqualified from even being considered. I think we ought to also like you to clarify whether he is disqualified from consideration. Because the RTA board and the Metro board aren't the same boards, and they don't have the same bylaws. And so they are different. And I don't think RTA dictates to Metro what they are. But why don't we get clarification on that, Mayor?
We are looking at that.
Okay.
The RTA legislation is broken up into various portions, and one of those sections does deal with the Metro board. I do have an assistant that I have assigned to read through that. Unfortunately, the legislation sets forth parameters for appointing the member, but then has that wonderful language at the end that says, unless otherwise provided, which means we have to read the full 60 to 80 pages to find out if it was otherwise provided. So we are working our way through that, and we will get an answer to it.
Well, all I can say is no issue. If you're not a good reader, don't be in the truck.
No, that's correct.
Here's the reading thing.
There's lots of reading.
Well, not only reading, and comprehending what you're reading.
Yes.
And the reason I think that's important is to see if he can be considered.
Correct.
He can't, he can't. In the meantime, I would still encourage everybody to let's get out there, let's see if we can get some people. Now, I will tell you, I'm going to be a little provincial here. I like to see somebody really come out of what I call the Lincoln Way eastern end of the county. First are the heaviest users of Metro. And I think we have some people that could be willing to serve there also. So I just have to reach out and see if they will submit their names. So Nick, I guess I want to make clear is that the executive's office will continue to take, I want to say, applications of interested people. Or I can move this one forward and you can see if it goes up or down.
I'll take this opportunity just to say to all board members, as I said in my email to the board office, that the county executive's office is always taking nominations, even for positions that aren't vacant at the time. And we always encourage board members. We provide you a list at the beginning of the year, which we just did. We put it online several years back. It's online. We still can make some improvements there, and if you have suggestions, we're always welcome to suggestions. But we try to put all the information out there, and we will always take names. I've received a few lately for some boards that we don't have a vacancy on, but we've told the people if a vacancy occurs, we will circle back with you and ask if you're interested. So this is an opportunity for county board members to promote the big board appointments like Metro, and the others, or even one specific to your district. If there's a drainage district, whatever. Some of those are pretty hard to find. To find somebody for a lighting district, and that may be something in the future we want to look at, consolidation or elimination. We have eliminated a few. We worked with the city of Joliet on one of the water ones, and they dissolved it, and it went into the city of Joliet system. So that's always something we will take names and nominations, and whether it be from someone who's personally interested in serving, they can nominate themselves basically, or if a board member or someone else wants to nominate someone and says, this person would be a great consideration for whatever board. So we're always willing to take names.
Okay, good.
Question.
Yes?
So just out of clarification, you're asking to remove the appointment that the executive has put forward and give more time to continue the search. In this more time, that includes Meari, what you have to do, but is there any specific time, how much longer this
You know what,
be open?
let me say this, that, that's a good question in regard. I like to say, let's keep going until we get a number of choices, perhaps. At some point, we would have to bring this forward. I'm just at this point asking to delay that appointment to give us maybe a little bit more time. So I'll entertain that motion to remove that appointment at this time. Second.
Second.
Motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Can you show me as a no?
Okay, I understand.
It's going too good.
Because I'm a little bit old myself as well. Okay, so then we'll get to committees.
Before you do that, could I ask another
Yeah,
question?
go ahead, sure.
Under other old business, we moved kind of quickly, kind of went on the radar a little bit, but I thought we were going to bring back up the workforce investment.
It will be. There was a table item.
Right, so,
It's already on the county board agenda
okay.
because it was tabled, but I'm going to allow some to talk about that. Just understand it's already on the county.
Right. Thank you.
Next, I would like to ask someone to make a motion to leave a space. Not that I'm thinking it'll get done, and we'll get it to you in ample time for review. Leaving a space for a resolution proposing the Illinois Tollway Authority conduct a feasibility study for the purpose of widening of the I-84.
Second.
Motion second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Now, I guess, Reagan, Meari, I'm hoping you can get something together, that we get together, that maybe we can get to everybody by Monday for review. I know that doesn't give you a whole lot of time. Gives it like today and tomorrow. But if we can put something together, I think there's a number of things that have to be in there, including some at least general scope of what we're asking to do. So if you can get that,
Have it Monday.
I'd appreciate it. So, the next have 4 minutes?
Yep.
So, thank you. Okay, so now, request for the state's attorney's opinion. I don't think we currently have any out there outside. We're asking about the metro appointment. I guess that would be an official opinion, right? For your,
You want that in writing?
yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, committee, Mr. Weigel.
On our draft agenda, we have 2 zoning cases. The second case, the requester has asked us to remove it from the agenda. This was a ZC 17049, a map amendment from A2 to A1. So I make a motion to remove that from the
Okay,
agenda.
got a motion?
Second.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
So I
Okay, is there any questions for Tom? Finance, Mike?
Yeah, I just had a couple pieces of business. We're going to authorize a loans in county highway fund out of the motor fuel tax. We'll be designating a few more banks as a county depository, both Canadian Imperial and First Policy, as I heard it, and authorizing the executive to execute the necessary documents for delinquent tax bill. That's all I have.
Okay, any questions for Mike? Okay, we'll move on. Public Works. Mr. Blue?
We have several things. One was putting a building up at the Arsenal Maintenance Facility. We have an agreement with Tollway for Cedar Road. MFT funds there to pay for Cedar Road. The agreement, license agreement with IDNR, and school lights on Reed Street in 143rd Street in Homer Township. One thing I'd like to do is I'd like to send 1 and 2 back to the committee. The reason I do is because after the meeting, I had spoken with Mr. Singer. He had asked us a few questions at the committee, and I thought they were good questions. And Corey has sort of a good knowledge of construction business, so I think it would be a chance to get some of those questions answered.
So you're requesting that those items be removed and sent back to committee?
Numbers 1 and 2.
Making that motion?
Yes, sir.
Second. We get a motion, there's a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Okay, anything else then?
No, I appreciate that.
Is there any questions for the board? Glen?
Nothing to be voted on.
Okay, any questions for Glen? Okay, public health and safety, Judy?
I do not have anything for this month either. I'll just have a little brief summary of the GIS presentation that we had just to tell you about it.
Any questions for Judy? Legislative policy?
We have our 2018 prior agenda state to be voted on.
Okay.
So hopefully if there's any questions, that's now.
Any questions for Judy?
Jen?
Yep, yes, I'm sorry.
There's a question was posed by a county board member wondering if they didn't agree with one of the agenda items, if we could bifurcate that, if they could vote for the agenda, but maybe not one of the items.
Let me say this, that we have not separated something from the legislative agenda, legislative initiatives. Anybody can make a motion to do that. Probably not something I would support, only because, there's always a little something somebody might not care for, so then we wouldn't have a legislative initiatives, because everybody want to pull out, how many things do you set, a person can always say there's a specific agenda item that they don't agree with, even though they're voting, get on the record to say you don't support this particular position within that overall agenda, but I would say we're not voting on multiple agendas. You only vote on one.
I understand.
You can vote for something we remove. If it fails, it goes forward. I mean, I think that's how it should be done. So I must make a motion to remove something, they can do that. Mary, would you add anything to that? Okay. So, all right, so that's how it'll pretty much be. Do I make a motion to remove something? Do so. But when the agenda's set, the agenda we set, we vote on. So. Okay. Capital improvements.
Thank you. We have 6 items that we'll be discussing on Thursday. The first is authorizing the county executive to execute an agreement with President St. Joe for the use of a radio tower. The other 5 have to do with intergovernmental agreements allowing access to our county-wide radio system. Pretty straightforward.
Any questions for that? Okay. Any questions on the executive committee agenda? Tollway didn't be into my agenda, right? So I'll need a motion for that. Add it to the executive agenda. Specific. Okay, it's okay. And then we have a table item, which was the workforce item of the contract for Farrah Consultants. And there was a little question about process, about policy. And I get all that because that's what I'm really interested in. And because maybe it's because, I've been around for quite a while and I've seen things. It's like that farmer's commercial. We see a few things,
Oh, jeez.
And at the time there were issues with how consulting contracts were given out. Stuff that was very specific to the predecessors of workforce, whether it was PIC or CETA or there were issues with consulting contracts for those folks. Now let me also say, I haven't had no issues with workforce, I don't think, in the past. There could be some things in the rearview mirror, I think is a question, but I'm not going to just look in the rearview mirror. And this consultant is a professional. He was the director of workforce for many years, and she has the highest regard for fairness and integrity. It really comes down to, is it a good idea for an employee, or in this case a director, to leave and retire, take their pension, and then come back right back as a consultant? And I would say right back because it's maybe 2 months. It's not something my preference to do it that way, but we have and I'm going to look at you, Mary, on this, is that we don't really have a policy on this. And so in the lack of a policy, do we, I think the word use punish, but I'm going to use the word punish, or not grant somebody something because we fail to maybe reflect in a policy what we think we should do. So, I want to make it clear we have no policy in this matter, even though I think we should establish one. I'm going to recognize Gloria. I sat on workforce and represented the county for a long time. Gloria took my spot. Thank you. But, I don't know if you want to say a few words there, Gloria, because this is an important program. It's grant funded, so when the grant goes away, everything else goes away with it. So I don't know if you want to say anything, Gloria.
Well, I do want to make a couple statements. First of all, the Workforce Investment Board is a board of itself, and they did the background investigation to determine who they felt was the best candidate for the position. Take the name of the company out. This is who they selected as their representative, or who they wanted to give the contract to, because they felt it was the best value and who could do the work the best. So I think we also need to look at their recommendation. We aren't doing the hiring per se, but we are going through with the grant. It is a grant that has been specified as a special work, has a distinguished workload that it has to have. And she's been, or this firm, I should say, has been selected to do the work. I think we should give the Workforce Investment Board their ability to select the people that they want to select. We do not have a policy about contract work or past employees to go into contract work. So I don't, again, use the word punish someone because we do not have a policy in place at this time. So again, I think we need to look at the recommendation from the Workforce Investment Board. I also want to state, because this kind of, I think we had an employee who we thought was a very highly accomplished employee. If we, now that person wants to become a contractor, if we don't like that, I have to question then why we had the person as an employee in the first place if we valued that person so well and what they did for the county. So I also, we need to think about whenever we put a policy in place, we have these employees who we are going to hold in high regard, and as time passes on and they choose to go into other venues of work, and we aren't going to rehire them back with a contract, I do question then why were they working for the county in the first place?
Well,
So I'm just saying that, I'm just, come on.
I'm just going to say,
fair.
there's many people, and I'm talking about just regular
Right.
citizens, who don't think it should be allowed at all. They call it various things,
But I don't want to punish someone, we do not have a policy in place right now.
I agree. So,
And we do have people here to have answered questions from Workforce Investment Board.
we're not going to, we need to question their decision. Denise,
And I'll just add to that it's not uncommon for someone to retire and then to start a consulting firm. And this firm wasn't started because of us. It started because that's the work that person does. It just happened that we have a contract that came available right away. So it's not because of us that they're in the consulting business. I've done the same thing myself. So there's nothing unusual in the private sector about someone consulting in their particular field and ending up getting a contract with a company they used to be involved with.
and this person does it, this consulting firm does have other contracts, we are exclusive. Okay, so I'll go, right?
Yeah. So on Thursday, this contract will be for us for a final vote, correct?
Correct.
Okay. I will be voting yes to award the contract to that company. And while this does give the appearance of impropriety, I think as a board, you sit back and you make decisions based on the right person for doing that work. And I believe this company and their representative is the right company to be doing the work for the workforce development. So I will be voting yes.
I want to point one other thing, you need to understand, all these dollars are federal dollars. And the feds pretty much heavily, they set guidelines that are usually pretty stringent. I don't think there's anything in the federal guidelines that prevent a former employee from being consulted.
Not in this instance, no.
Okay. Who's next? Darren was next?
Do you know when and who submitted the application for the federal grant?
That would be a question for Caroline.
For the WIOA grant? Is that what you mean?
Yes.
Yes.
So our funding is through the Department of Labor, and it's done on an annual basis, and we start the process in March, and then the funds are typically awarded in June, and then we go through and I have a handout here that'll help you understand maybe the funding stream a little bit more. If you'd like, I can give you a copy, but then we go through and put together our program of work. But for the larger buckets, the adult dislocated worker and the youth, those dollars are set by the Department of Labor, come through the Department of the DCEO, and then to the Workforce Board.
That's what your question, right?
No.
You asked I think what he's asking
Did
is...
Pat do the grant?
Well, she did the grant from DOL, but she did not do the grant for herself.
Did it for workforce?
Correct.
So she wrote the grant for workforce and then retired and now it's coming in?
No, well, it's the grant for the whole system.
You standing there, Sue, you waving at me, you want to speak? Go ahead.
The money is allocated to Will County. It's not a, we write a grant and then they decide if they're going to give us money. It's a federal allocation that comes to Will County. And then the Workforce Investment Board decides how that money is going to be spent in concert with workforce services.
Well, Sue, though, along with that, though, it's not necessarily a decision of the Workforce Board to make that decision. The feds also can give new guidelines for that money. They can start new programs for those funds, correct?
Correct.
And in this case, is this program a new program, or is it been something that's been existing? Can anyone tell me?
They are new performance measures that we are now being held to. So WIA was the Workforce Investment Act. In 2014, they started WIOA, the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act. With that came some new performance measures. And in last spring, they started, DCEO and DOL started putting some meat to the bone, if you will, about what those.
So it's a continuing program with new guidelines for results. So
correct.
So do we have a consultant to run these programs before?
Well, they're new performance measures.
They're new performance measures. Does that mean they're new programs? I mean, measures of programs are not.
So they're new expectations. So one of them is the service integration. We have to ensure that all of the partners that we now house at the Workforce Center are performing at a certain level in order to continue to receive the allocation. So part of it is how well are our services being integrated.
So this contract basically then is about measuring the performance of
correct, and helping us with the continuous improvement of those systems.
Isn't that done internally?
No, it's done by the state and federal government. They monitor us each year.
But I'm saying, don't you set the standard? I mean, they set the standards. You have to set up the workflow that understands what the standard outcomes are, and then be able to track that your baseline of where you are today and what you've done to improve.
Yes, we do that internally. We're also looking to increase our effectiveness in doing that.
And so what specifically is this firm being hired to do?
So one of the things, so we had asked for performance improvement initiatives. This firm brought up the idea of the secret shopper in bringing in people into the system so they understand what the workflow, the customer's experience flow is throughout the system. So that's sort of what put this proposal over the top for us, because they started looking at from the front door, it's just like Disney, right? How many touches does this person have, and where are some of our challenges, and then what can we do to continue to improve those?
Isn't that additional dollars though? The secret shopper, wasn't that additional dollars to do?
Well, no, so the clarification, and I apologize for that, first time I've ever written a contract for the board, so I didn't know what kind of information you guys needed. It tied back to the RFP or the proposal that firm sent in. So we would pay from the system, we would pay the secret shopper separately. The contract that you are looking at is what monies are being paid to the consulting firm.
Well, I think this is where it gets a little. So this is about hiring somebody to do performance measures to make sure we're complying with the federal grant. And even though we didn't hire a consultant in the past, we did this internally. But now you feel we have to have a consultant come in and do this because we can no longer do it internally.
No. What we're doing is we're trying to improve on the process. You're talking about a center that has 4 different state agencies in it, and we think it would be better served if instead of workforce services telling the unemployment or, Department of Rehabilitation Services, what they're doing. We had someone who looked at the system as a whole and said, here are some of your challenges and this is how you can improve.
Yeah, so you're deciding that we need this.
No, the government's decided we need this.
The government said you'll get an outside consultant to do this?
No, I'm sorry, no. They've said
You'll
need
do
to
this.
perform at these levels.
You'll do this.
You need to perform at these levels.
Correct,
You decided that you need a consultant to do this, not the person that's already on stage.
correct.
All right, so therein lies my problem, and, I'm gonna vote yes on this, but we have to do some kind of policy on this. I mean, our last county board meeting was a lot about transparency. The resident out there, the constituent out there sees someone retiring and come right back and getting a nice job. That's all they see. They don't hear all this other stuff. If we ask a question, can you do it internally, or does it have to be an outside person? You just tell me that it could be an inside person, but we decide to do an outside person, okay, there may be reasons for that. Then the outside person is a person that just retired from the inside. It just doesn't look right. Regardless if she's the best person or not, it doesn't look right, and that's what is at issue here. Right.
If Pat was still a director, would we be going to the outside?
Well, that, I don't know, would we?
Yes.
Yeah.
What?
Okay, let me, if I could. I've been working in higher ed for 16 years, dealing with this accreditation and how universities are set up to be able to have to do their own inside evaluation. And what happens is a lot of times these guys get stuck into the same old. And especially, and I appreciate you clarifying that this is not just about taking a look at one aspect, but 4 different groups that have their own workflow, the way that they're being able to deal with this. Sometimes it does take someone from the outside to go in and say, this is an issue, this is an issue, this is an issue, and you may need to, because it then helps facilitate conversation that even if you try to sit down and have a team meeting, it doesn't get done, because everybody's comfortable with the kind of things that they're doing. So I think the idea that we're going outside, bringing a consultant in to help us see these kind of things is not a bad thing at all. I think, again, the idea is how quick we move to get to Pat. Now, remind us, Pat wasn't the only bidder on this?
Correct, we had 5 bids.
Right.
And it was a combination of the experience that she has with WIOA, so she understands the regs that we live under, and she also understands Will County and the Will County system.
And her pricing came in, because this
Her
was an
pricing-
RFP versus
Correct.
RFQ.
Right, it was an RFP, and her pricing was not the highest and not the lowest, she was in the middle. Our highest was 93,000, she was 77. We had another that was 55, and I've got the paperwork. I've got all of the proposals if you want to see them.
And so, again, why were the lower bids not taken?
Because they didn't, so for example, one consultant said that they would put together a manual for us. No training of staff, no, examples of how we could improve, just they would put together a training manual for us. That we don't need a training manual, we can put together a training manual. We need somebody to come in and look at the system as a whole.
So did you put an RFQ out or an RFP out?
An RFP.
So you put out a request for proposals, not for request for qualifications, and there is a difference. Proposal, unless so you didn't put any real scope of work. Did you say we want a manual, we don't want a manual, they'll include a manual? I'm just interested when you talk about those, was that in the request for proposals, for example, that there would be a manual and training? Because you said they didn't include training. Well, if it wasn't kind of in the scope of the work, why wouldn't it?
No, the scope was really just how are you going to help us make it better? And then it was left to them to tell us how they were going to make it better.
That makes it worse.
Yeah.
Makes it worse for me.
Yeah.
Because now you're saying a person that was working in the organization was the best idea, what should be done, gets the most points because they wrote exactly what should be done, and somebody on the outside looking in says, well, this is what I think. Oh, you don't know what you're talking about, so you're down on the bottom.
I mean, that's the thing about coming right back. There is insider information, I think, when a person comes right back, because they know everything that's there. They were working on it.
But to that extent,
You know,
I understand, I understand, but to that extent, it also does save us time and money in getting the project done. Because what if, but what if the project had been longer, because now they gotta get wrapped up and get going and do all this background things, this person can come in and get started right away.
well,
I understand,
yeah, I understand.
but there is no policy right now for not, and again, this investment board made a recommendation on who they wanted to hire. Now, we have gone through and approved tons of contracts. Actually, last week, I think we rattled off those contracts so fast, and I have not seen as much conversation, and the dollar values were much higher. I think if we're gonna you're going to investigate every contract, you better hold every other contract to the level of investigation that you're doing right now. Because this investment board is an independent board, and they made a recommendation to us. So I'm just...
They're an independent board that needs approval from the county board to spend certain types of monies or execute contracts. They need the advice and consent. It's not like other boards. They do need advice and consent from this board to go forward. And quite honestly, if something did go awry, they would come back to this board, not to the workforce board, for anything that may have been inappropriate. Or for, you know, so who else is there? But yeah, I'm going to go back to that, you know, unless you want to wait till they're all done.
Doesn't matter.
Let me finish up this county board members' comments.
Actually, I was going to kind of ask about Nick, because the one thing that I'm kind
No,
of...
I am going to get to Nick.
I know, but as I'm looking across, because we all went, when we were in DC, we went into the workforce. I was just a little bit more baffled of hearing this consultant of getting for, one of the criteria for getting grants. I mean, this is on, everyone knows in this room, this is on our federal agenda.
Our workforce program, I think, has been highly regarded and...
Oh, it's championed. It's used as an example throughout, as this, as Pat Farrow was on leading that chart. So I guess I was just, I didn't know that this was a criteria of getting it. That's why I was kind of looking across and for a question of what Nick was, I think, I'm assuming he's going to say.
Director Gadget did a great job.
So I just wanted to say, so we got the grant dollars, right? We've done the research to look into this, and they rated it as it is. What I think is, in my opinion, is like, well, we've been made aware of a situation that we don't have a policy on, so I think that's very good conversation. I think it's good to go forward and set a policy in place, and so that we are set specific stipulations as to how something like this could happen in the future if we would want it to happen, because there does seem to be a bit of a conflict, you know. But I have worked with Pat in the past, and I know that she has fabulous experience. So it's kind of like, you weigh, I don't know these other people, so it's like, is she a better person? It's just, if she retired 3 years ago, we wouldn't be having a conversation. So I think we should look at setting policy for the future and go forward.
I would agree with that.
And I would agree with everything that it says, because I think that the workforce investment, I think Caroline and her staff, Susan, did a very good job of vetting. And I think the fact that we're looking at Pat Farrow as a former employee, I think is a little discriminatory. But I do agree with all the comments. I know she put a lot of years in there, but I think she had the best value, the knowledge to present what they were looking for. And I certainly would support it. I would vote yes, because I do believe that she met the criteria with the points and the qualifications for this contract. So I would certainly vote yes.
But I'm also going to say, you know, I'm going to vote yes also, but I'm really not happy. I'm still not happy with the process and the lack of policy we have in place, but we'll correct that. Nick, did you want to say anything?
I will try to be very brief and to the point, but just to step back for a second and just give a quick history, because I've been very involved with this, and I know a number of board members have who've been here, some have left. But as was already said, there was the Workforce Investment Act. We, as part of our federal agenda for like 10 years, had the Workforce Investment Act as part of our agenda. We've fought to get improvements in it, because when you deal with federal workforce programs, people always say, is it going for the right purpose? Is the money being spent appropriately? This group, with the WIOA, there was increased scrutiny, and anybody who's on the workforce board knows they go through tons of hoops from the federal regulations. The money comes to the state, they regulate it. The workforce board, which, by the way, is 51% private sector people by requirement. So we have business people from the community here involved in the workforce board who, as Mr. Musa said, they make decisions, but they ultimately come to this board. So if there was a problem, Will County government gets the black eye along with the workforce board. Fortunately, over the last, there was issues years ago, but I think with the hiring of Pat Farah and Susan Flushner back in the previous administration, things started to change to the positive and have continued to go positively. And I don't think you always hear this, but we have exceeded our performance measures many, many years and have been rewarded financially by the federal government and state government because of that success. Pat was integral in getting workforce as part of the CMAP plan, because CMAP was saying, oh, workforce is garbage, and she explained why it works here in Will County. So our system has worked very well, has exceeded expectations. With the One Stop, which is a consolidation of all these state services into the facility we currently have, which this board approved and supported, there's more work to be done. The WIB board continues to get involved in more projects like the freight study, which is an important piece. And I think to Mr. Mayor's point, this is where bringing somebody from the outside who's not connected any longer to the organization can give an honest assessment from an outside view. And on top of that, Pat, to my best of my knowledge, she's done everything by the book legally. This isn't like what we hear about other people with pensions and things like, she's not getting benefits, she's not getting pension, she's set up a consulting firm, she's got other clients. She's done everything by the book to do this right. So we're not breaking any rules or any laws. And we hire, having been part of many consulting interviews, we hire people based on their knowledge of the area and the organization. We have somebody who is coming in with all that knowledge, as opposed to hiring a consultant who has to ramp up to understand the process. So I don't understand why it's different with this. And the last point I'll make is, she was probably, this was said at the WIB board, she was probably more scrutinized than somebody just coming off the street, because everybody wanted to be, these are the business people, our government partners, everybody else scrutinizes more to make sure that it was above board and there was no funny business. So I think it's a positive thing. And the goals of this really are to improve our services, because we're serving job seekers and employers. That's been the goal. And this board itself has questioned and encouraged greater scrutiny, that greater data. That's all going to come out of this consult. I want to make one last point that I forgot. When we talk about grants sometimes, this is not like, I don't believe, we're talking about like a competitive grant. The money that all comes to Will County is granted from the USDOL to the State Department of Commerce, who then puts it out to the locals. It's all formula-based, but there are incentives and things like I was talking about. But when we're talking about grants, this is all part of that county allocation that we get, and we decide how we spend it. But believe me, there's tons and tons of red tape and paperwork and requirements, and this is scrutinized way more than any other government program, I would think. So if you want to see all the paperwork, we could show you, but it's a lot of scrutiny, so, and a lot of auditing and things. But this is bringing in an outside person to try to continuous quality improvement of our system, which is already very good. So
I think, unless there's some other question, I think we can move on. I think that, like I say, it's already on the agenda. We will vote on it at the next Thursday at the county board meeting. I think if there were some hiccups in that contract, Meari, because there were something in there about extras or extra costs.
That's been clarified.
That's been clarified. So as long as you're happy with it, the way it's going forward.
Okay, can I just get one more clarification, just for, thank you. This is not just looking at the Will County, this is looking at agencies that are outside of Will County's domain, correct? The scope of this is like Department of Rehab Services that are
Correct.
involved. These aren't just services that Will County was offering, but looking at this one-stop shop has brought in multiple agencies. So Pat never really oversaw those other agencies.
Correct.
Right? She's just oversaw our agency, knows so much more about those other agencies than some other folks were because they started to work with us. So I think that kind of plays a little bit better for me in looking at this decision-making process. Because it's not just about what she did here for Will County, it's her knowledge globally about workforce and the workflow that happens within that process.
Thank you. Okay, so I'll ask to set the county board agenda as amended.
So moved.
Moved. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any public comments at this time? Public comments? There's no need for executive session. And, okay, all in favor, motion to adjourn? Move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Thank you, everyone. I know it's been a long day.